Right. So again, my name is Kimberley Trommler from Paessler, and we'll look into the software now for a live demo. And like you've been doing all along, please ask questions as they pop up. So this is what the software looks like when you first log in. And what I want to start with showing you is this tree structure here. We talked about the local probes and remote probes, and you see them then right here in the structure. Here's the local probe running with the server. There's a remote probe running in our offices in Nuremberg. New Horizon is also a remote probe that we're experimenting with at the moment. So you have this tree structure. And if I open up part of the tree structure, you then see groups and devices. And if I keep going, it's Cisco, so let's look at a Cisco device. Once you get down to the level of individual devices, you see a bunch of colored boxes here. And these are what we call sensors. And the concept of sensors is really important in this software because our pricing levels are all based on the number of sensors you've got. So I want to take a second just to explain what is a sensor. It's not hardware, it's a purely software concept. And one sensor is one aspect on one device that you're monitoring. So if we take a typical server, you would have, CPU usage, disk space, memory. If it's a web server, is Apache running? If it's a database server, is SQL responding properly? Each of those things is one sensor. So you end up with multiple sensors on every device. On average, 5 to 10 per device. And the customers decide themselves what types of sensors and how many they want on each device. So if they've got something that's really, really important, they can put tons of sensors on it and monitor it to death. And if it's something where they only care is it up or not, then they can just put a ping on it and ignore the rest.
Is there a limit?
It depends on what license you bought. So the licenses go in groups of sensors, 500, 1,000, 2,500, up to our largest license, which is unlimited. And then inside each sensor, here's one I like because it shows lots more. This sensor is core health, and it's PRTG measuring how well is PRTG running at the moment. And what you see when you go into it is, even though I said it's one aspect, there's several smaller bits of information that it's measuring. We call those channels. And each of these channels together make up this aspect of how healthy is the server right now. So this one you can see, okay, CPU load, free page file, memory, threads. All of this together counts as this one aspect, one sensor. How is PRTG running? No question there.
The warning is fine.
The warning is because some of the remote probes are dead. This is a demo environment that our pre-sales team are all using very actively at the same time.
It's very real life because I never see a monitoring system that doesn't have any red in it.
Yeah.
So
this one always has red, trust me. Always has something red because, like I said, the entire pre-sales team is using it around the clock, turning things on and off on purpose to show.
It's like a real-world production environment.
Well, I would hope in a production environment it doesn't look quite this bad.
looks worse.
We'll see.
That's what you hope.
We hope everything is green and not red. I'm going to show you the sensors a bit more. So for each sensor, you have these gray tabs at the top, and they're showing the live data, the last 2 days, 30 days, and 365 days. Configurable, that's just the default we do. We spoke already about the database and what it is. I'd like to mention here also the data storage. We store the raw data, so every individual measurement we've taken every 60 seconds by default for a year. Which is why this 365 days is also the default in there. We don't do any kind of averaging or summarizing. A lot of monitoring tools do because they need to save database space. We don't. So like I said, the raw data by default is a year. You can also change that if you want. Sometimes customers have requirements to keep things for 3 years. You just change it to 3 years. The only difference to us is, okay, you need more disk space then.
Yeah. So now that you mentioned disk space, how much disk space do you need?
We have an article. Let me see if I can find it quickly.
Just an order of magnitude.
System requirements. Depends obviously on how many sensors you have and how often they're running, right? If it's running every 60 seconds, you're collecting more data than if you run every 5 minutes. But we do have a page with some rough rules of thumb. So here, if you're looking at, say, the larger end, the larger customers are looking at roughly 2 terabytes. That would be for a year. And if that customer decides, no, I must have 3 years, then it's 6. Yeah. The math there is pretty simple.
And you are really consuming storage by number of sensors.
Yeah, it's just every sensor, every measurement that it takes, we need to save. So the more sensors you have and the more channels inside those sensors, obviously the more we need to save. If that ends up being too much, you can also lower it and say, only save 6 months, or throw away graph data after 1 month. If a customer has disk space problems, there are ways to optimize that. But most are fine with this. I'm going to go back to my sensor, my Happy Core Health sensor. The data, the other thing you have here is historic data to pull reports for this sensor. And then you can get them as HTML, XML, or CSV. So if you want to pump it into Excel or whatever, then you can get any of the data out as CSV.
Another thing you had on that page, where you said, no, that's fine. You said 1,000 sensors is approximately 100 devices.
Very rough.
Yeah, that's okay for servers, but if we talk about switches, where each switch has 50 interfaces times 10 things you want to monitor per interface.
No, because if you wanted to monitor every interface, it's one sensor. Per interface. There's an SNMP traffic. Actually, I think I even had one open. Let's see if I can get the right click. No. This, for example, this is a sensor monitoring traffic on one interface. But all of these things you see, the counters for multicast and discards and whatever, those are only channels. Together it counts as one sensor. So for switches and routers, what we usually see is either they want everything on every port, and then it's one sensor per port, plus a handful for the rest of the switch. Yeah, that stuff, switch health. Or they don't care at all about access ports. They only care, say, about the 2 uplink ports. And then they do all of this, but only on the 2 uplink ports, and then they've only got a couple of maybe 5. Pardon?
Mainly the uplinks.
Yes. What I find is most customers do on their backbone switches, they do everything. And on distribution, it's 50-50. And access is, do the uplinks. We don't care about the rest of them. A little bit about sensor types, because I talked about some unified monitoring. Just to give you a rough idea, there's roughly 200 sensor types already built in. Not surprisingly, for bandwidth, for web servers, lots of SNMP-based stuff. Most of the Windows stuff is done with WMI or performance counters. Linux sensors, virtual servers, mail, database. You guys can read.
How do you do bandwidth monitoring?
I'll show you what's here, and we'll see real ones. Actually, I can skip to them in a second. Bandwidth monitoring, the first level of attack is always SNMP, right? Get the traffic counters using SNMP. And that was, if I can find it again, that was this sensor here. It's an SNMP traffic sensor. Your next.
So you're measuring consumed bandwidth, not available bandwidth.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, that's easy.
Yeah.
Any plans for Yang rather than just SNMP?
Not at the moment.
Okay. gRPC. And do you do, when you monitor network side, are you monitoring can you monitor things like RTT, good put, things like that as well? Or is it only what's available okay.
With SNMP, only what's available with SNMP. There's Armon as well, but that's also not that much more than SNMP. For round trip time, there's another sensor. I unfortunately don't have one in the demo. It's a quality of service sensor that measures jitter, delay, round trip time between 2 PRTG probes. So then you have to use the remote probe. And we will send UDP back and forth between the two probes, and they will measure between themselves what they saw as round trip time. If you've got Cisco, okay, it's a Cisco Live, so let's assume you've got Cisco's with IPSLA. We can also get the IPSLA data from SNMP, but then we're just trusting Cisco, right? We're just reporting whatever Cisco is saying. And if you don't have Cisco, or you want maybe a second opinion, then you can measure between the two probes. And the other main way for bandwidthy type stuff is NetFlow. The different flavors of NetFlow are here. We support all of the main ones. Let me see.
Paessler is a full NetFlow connector. I can send NetFlow data.
You can send NetFlow to PRTG. I'll show you what it looks like then once you've got it running. The NetFlow. Log in. They all look the same. You have to pick the right sensor for the version of NetFlow you've got. We will then show you the top talkers, top connections, and top protocols by default. And if you want, you can create additional lists. If you want to filter by IP address or port or whatever, then you can create custom lists. And if I go into one of these, say the top talkers, then you have this circle graph that I find a little hard to read. But then you have the list of.
So cool.
They look really cool, but honestly, so who's the culprit here is a little hard to read from the circle, but that's okay. You get the table right below it.
We had just a presentation from Cisco, and I can say they use the same graph.
Well, the graphs look exactly the same.
The graphs, yeah, but I mean, if you only have that graph, you're like, okay. Which one was it here? You look at the table and you say, okay, these two, whatever they were, are your top talkers. So the table's there.
And just to complete this, you understand NetFlow. What other flow formats do you use?
JFlow, Juniper, SFlow, which is sort of standardized, HP at least is using it, and IPFix. And the flexible NetFlow, sort of. We can handle the standard fields in flexible NetFlow, but not custom fields. Okay, questions about bandwidth while we're here? Nobody's saying anything? Then I'm going to go back to my big page here with all of the sensors on it and talk a little bit about these sensor states. Every page has a summary at the top here of the sensors you've got and what state they're in. And some of the colors are not necessarily obvious what they mean, and so I want to look at those. I think it's probably pretty obvious what red, yellow, and green mean. Not necessarily obvious is this lighter red. It's acknowledged. It's an error that's acknowledged. So it's still an error, but we will stop sending out alerts bugging you all the time about it. Blue is paused, and there's different ways something can end up paused. The first one is you can manually pause it. If you've got scheduled maintenance and you know something's about to go down, you can just go in and pause that section of the tree and say, stop monitoring this for the next 3 hours while I'm working on it, and then turn it back on again when you're done.
Can I also do schedule calls?
Absolutely.
So tomorrow at 6 and...
You can do tomorrow, the whole day is scheduled maintenance, pause everything. You can do this location, we know powers everything down every night. So for that location, don't bother between 5 p.m. and 8 a.m. Yeah, you can set schedules and you can define what the schedule is. You can choose to whether you stop monitoring completely or if you just stop sending alerts. So you might want to keep monitoring just to have statistics, but you don't need, an SMS at 3 o'clock in the morning because they turn everything off every night. Yeah, the two different types of scheduling. The other way things get paused are dependencies. So by default, we will pause some things if a ping fails. If we try to ping a server and it doesn't answer, we don't even try everything else. I mean, if we can't ping it, we're pretty sure we also can't SQL or HTTP or anything else to it. So we will pause all of the other sensors on that machine until the ping comes back up. Plus, you can define your own dependencies. You may say, if this one port is down, then we know that this entire location is down I don't need 100 alerts that location's down, so pause everything there until the one port is back up.
That's one interesting question, because if you do this, for example, with the availability of a virtualization platform like an ESXi, defining that this needs to be up for the VMs running on top of it need to be up, and the VMs are moving across the ESXi, can you do that?
You can do it manually,
Yeah,
but if a VM moves, you're going to have to change the dependency manually too. I mean, you could script it.
Most enterprise clusters are running in automatic mode, moving VMs around to localize them. So you would have some sort of automatic mechanism to train it.
We would do more likely, don't make it dependent on the underlying ESX, make it dependent on the vSphere server, because it knows where the VMs are.
The vCenter.
Yes.
So you're going to go to the vCenter and get the list of clusters and monitor at the cluster level.
Yep.
Okay.
I find customers don't use the dependencies a lot. Too complicated, too hard, I don't know. They're not used a lot. The ping gets used a lot, but the other dependencies where you could make it dependent on certain hardware being there or a certain port being up, very few actually do.
I think the most important reason for that is that you're not annoying enough. Because I would do the dependency checks if all these devices, services are down, messages are basically killing me, because I know it's down because this one is down, so everything else is down, so stop bothering me. There would be a reason to do dependency checks. So if nobody's doing it,
apparently we're not being annoying. I'm going to get to how we do the notifications and how we avoid the 300 emails when one thing goes down. But it's not based on dependencies. Maybe we should change it or be more annoying. Sensor stage, that was paused. I'm going to skip orange and come back to it. Gray is unknown, means it has never run properly once. It usually means it was never set up correctly, like they're trying to do Windows sensors on a Linux machine or vice versa. Normally you don't see any of these gray ones, but because this is a demo environment, there's always something weird going on. The orange ones are a little bit special, so I'm going to show you one of them. It's unusual. And it's PRTG doing a statistical analysis of how this sensor usually behaves and saying there's something unusual here. It has nothing to do with any kinds of thresholds you may have set. It's us saying statistically this is not normal. It may be fine. It might not. It's something you should look at. If I take one for just an example here, what's it saying? The response time is unusually low for this hour of the week. Actually, response time being low is actually good, right? So,
but it's unusual.
But it's unusual.
So maybe the website is down, it's returning 404s.
Or maybe, which is not good, right? So you want to check out why. It's the unusuals are good if you have no real errors. And you've got time on your hands, go in and check what the unusuals are to see, is there a reasonable explanation, like, traffic's low because it's a holiday, or traffic's low because one of my switches is just not passing traffic properly. It's worth checking out if you've got time.
But for all this, you have some predefined rules.
Yes.
So
and you can adjust the rules. You can decide how aggressive this is. I think the default is, less than 25% of normal or more than 3 times normal or something like that, but you can change it if it has to be less than 10% or more than 10 times. It's all adjustable to decide how aggressive this unusual detection is.
And it is adjustable per asset or per
No,
sensor?
for the whole server. Global for the server. Okay, shall we look at notifications for a bit? Any questions about the sort of basic sensor stuff and sensor states?
If you go back, you had one packet sniffing sensor.
I have a packet.
What does it do?
It does almost the exact same as NetFlow. I'll see if I've got one in the demo.
I think I saw just one in the orange.
Oh, one in the orange. Okay, let me go back to my oranges. Ah, there it is. So how the packet, you'll see it looks an awful lot like NetFlow, doesn't it? How the packet sniffer works is it has to be traffic that PRTG can see. And we don't have probes all over the networks like someone like Paessler might have. We can only see the traffic that's coming through the PRTG server. So you can either, well, what most people do is you mirror traffic, right? Mirror traffic from one of your switches to PRTG, then we can see the traffic and we analyze it similar to NetFlow. Most of the customers that use this packet sniffer are using it because they don't have NetFlow on their equipment.
So it's not like you're looking at what Wireshark is.
It's not Wireshark, and it's not the sort of deep packet inspection. It's basically, we're taping this, so I don't know if I'm allowed to be honest. I call it poor man's NetFlow. It's for customers who need the information you would normally get from NetFlow but don't have NetFlow. Especially our smaller companies or customers tend to have equipment that was meant for home use because it's cheaper, but then it doesn't have NetFlow.
Then you're lucky if you have a spend.
You're lucky if you have a spend port. Or we tell them, I personally don't like recommending it, but we say make the PRTG server your default router, your gateway, and it forces then it forces all the traffic, or get a tap. But yeah, the NetFlow or the packet sniffer is basically NetFlow for areas where you don't have NetFlow available. Okay, I'm going to look at notifications. I'm going to start with what can you even do as a notification. And I'm going to add a new one so you can see what your options are. So you can create a list of, these are actions that can happen. And then later on, in a second, we'll see, okay, where do I say what action I want to happen when? But this is defining what are the actions that are even possible. And we talked about not being annoying enough. This is the summarization. You can say right here, before you've even defined what's going to happen, how annoying should we be? Do you want to get every single up and down message as an email? He does, okay.
God loves that. Yeah, it's all about.
Do I only want downs? Do I want downs and the corresponding ups? And if you choose to summarize them, then you say how long, 1 minute, 10 minutes. If it's overnight, maybe once per hour. And so this is how we avoid the, one thing went down and you got 300 emails. We say summarize them and only send one message every 10 minutes, for example. Now, what can you actually do as a notification? Not surprisingly, you can send email. You can send SMSs. You can send push notifications to a smartphone. We can write to an event log. I mean, it's running on Windows, right? We can write into the Windows event log, and then if you've got a really good event log analyzer, we can just add information to your existing analyzer. We can send out syslogs. We can send out traps. These three together, we can also be receivers. So for a smaller company that doesn't have a decent event log tool, they can use this as a basic event log tool. But for a bigger customer who's already got something really good running, we say, let us just be one more source for the other tool. The execute HTTP action is we can webhook things. If you've got a ticketing system, it'll usually have some kind of web interface. Use this to generate tickets in your ticketing system. I'm going to skip execute program and come back. We can send Amazon messages, not used a lot, but the option exists. And the assign ticket is, PRTG also comes with its own ticketing system. Also for smaller customers who don't have a ticketing system, then they can use this one. And the execute program is a really cool one because it's basically running any script that you've got. So anything you can think of that you might want to do in response to a problem, write it, script it, and say, run my script. So, simple things, restart a service or force a VM migration, just script them. Maybe as the first step, we'll see in a second, you can then escalate these notifications. So you could say, all right, in the first step, run the script. 5 minutes later, if the problem still exists, my script obviously didn't work. Now I'm going to open a ticket, send an SMS or whatever. And you can combine these. You can write to the event log and send an SMS at the same time. You can have as many of these active at the same time as you'd like. Let's look now at, okay, we've decided these are actions that we're capable of doing. How do I tell PRTG when to do what action? So let me go back to a sensor. Here's a lovely sensor. This one is CPU load. And we need some kind of threshold to set the sensor into warning or error state. The thresholds, you can, if you want to, set different thresholds for every single channel. You would probably go insane trying to do that. The option exists, but for now I'm going to set one for sort of total CPU usage on this thing. And I just enable limits. And so, okay, CPU should be low, so I want an error at 80% and a warning maybe at 60%. And you know, on this machine, if CPU is like low, there's something wrong because this machine is supposed to be busy, so I'm going to get a warning at 10% and an error at 5. I'm just making up numbers. Look for a second in the background here, you see how this was all green? When I add thresholds, okay, it then shows me where I've set the thresholds. And okay, now I am capable of making the sensor go into some other warning state. I still need to tell it what to do when there's a warning or an error. And this is where this notification tabs come in. And every setting in PRTG, including the notifications, is automatically inherited through this tree. So the intelligent way to do this is not what I'm about to do at the sensor level. The intelligent way to do this is high up in your tree, decide what notifications you want for what, and just let them be inherited. But I'm going to play with this one sensor for today. And what I see is, all right, these are ones that are already set somewhere higher in the tree. I can just accept those and inherit them, but I don't want to do that. I want to add a new one, so I'm going to add a new one. And this is where you get to say what to do. So I can say, all right, if this one is in a warning state for 60 seconds, then I'm going to write to the event log. And if I want to, I can escalate it here and say, all right, if it's still in warning state 5 minutes later, then I'm going to be a little more aggressive and I'm going to email the graphics team because they care. And if you want to, you can decide here, do you want another notification when it clears? If it goes okay again by itself, do I want to hear about it or not? And then you can add as many of these as you want. So here I've only dealt with warnings. I would probably want to add another one for errors. And if you want to, you can add 20 of these to have 20 escalation steps. So, good for notifications?
If the coffee machine goes down, then
panic, everyone, the entire company right now. Yeah. Anyway, this is how you can decide, maybe, for certain sensors it goes to the server team and other sensors goes to the network team, and anything that's been read for more than an hour is going to management. Here you can get, if you want to, as granular as you want. I'm going to move now to reporting. Great, we've collected data, we've maybe sent some alerts, but everyone needs, reports for management or whatever. Reports are here. These are a few that are sort of predefined, and I'm going to run one so you can see what they look like. You can define reports however you want and in as much detail. You can do just a summary for a device, or you can do every single sensor. It's a drag and drop interface to decide which sensors go into which report. And you get something that looks like this, and you could choose to have it just mailed automatically. At the end of every month, generate a report, send it as PDF to whoever. Where it gets, I find a lot more interesting, is the dashboards. So these reports, this is historical stuff, right? What happened last month? But we also have our dashboards. We call them maps. The name is a teeny bit misleading. Think dashboard when you hear PRTG map. And I've got a few of them already bookmarked so we can see just some examples. What these dashboards are is any information we've collected, you can put together using a drag and drop editor at any level of detail you want. So in this example, it's very high level for management. Things are green or red, and that's about all they know. You can maybe get a little bit more detailed. Here's one when it loads. I reload it. Any cloud services you may be monitoring, for example, to show employees in the company all of your Google apps, Exchange 365, whatever it happens to be, are up or not. Getting more detailed here, for example, your main web servers. You've got, overviews of your order process, your server, the underlying network, the underlying database. Let me get rid of this for a second. Any kind of underlying services you might have. And I think I got one more bookmarked. For the VMware people, how's my underlying hardware? How is ESX running? How are the individual virtual machines running? And the dashboards are always current information. So this is not a historical view of last month. This is right now on ESX1. At the moment, everything looks good. Everything's green. And each of these maps is just a web page with its own unique URL. So you can create maps for different user groups and give them their own URL and say, if you have any kind of questions or problems, look here first. If everything's green there, the problem's you. So we're not allowed to say that to users. But like I said, there's this really high-level one. You give management this one, and you give your VMware guys this one. And you can decide whether they're read-only or not.
That management one had kind of a problem on it.
Probably does.
Can we fix that so that it's always green all the time?
Yes.
Okay.
We actually have well hidden one sensor that's called always green.
You really do?
We really do. Well, we give demos, right? And we need green sensors, we need red sensors. But there is actually well hidden one that's called always green. Yeah, and like I said, you can decide if these are clickable or not. So say management, you probably don't want them clicking and landing further inside the software, right? They get viewed. Right. They're allowed to look at the results and that's it. But obviously your VMware guys are going to want to click if something's wrong, dig down deeper and see what it is. So you just also decide what level of access people get to the maps and the information that's behind
How
the maps.
customizable were those screens again? Are these all canned or are these?
No, these are completely. I'm not going to mess up this one because this is one we use. Let me just make you. Let me see. That one looks like one I can mess up, doesn't it?
So the other application that popped in my head was knock screens. I can build.
Yeah, exactly. You can build. You can have as many as you want. So what it looks like. Okay, this one's broken, so it's all right if I mess with it. This is the map editor. I go into Map Designer, and when it loads. What I see on the left-hand side is this entire tree of everything I've got right down to the individual sensor level. And I have no idea what this thing is. I just drag and drop it over. And over on the right-hand side are all kinds of different graphic elements I could choose from. And I drag it over top until the thing turns green and let go. And now I've got this element in this graphical format, and you can resize them and move them around. And because it's just a web page, you can add custom HTML if you want prettier backgrounds and your company logo and the whole bit. It's just a web page. Do whatever you want to it, and then give out the URL. It can also be embedded in other web pages. You can just take it in an iframe. So if a customer already has a really nice dashboard from somewhere else and they just want some little bit of PRTG in it, make a map. And just give them the URL for that map and they can put it in the other dashboard. No problem.
Like an iframe.
Exactly. It's even here. If I click on Get HTML, there's the iframe. Cut and paste it into the other one. And the other way around, right? If you want this to be the main dashboard, but you want some little piece that's coming from some other tool, grab it, slap it in as an HTML element in this dashboard.
Just one question regarding to the server that you have shown. Is this a static picture or is it?
No, it's updating every 60 seconds.
It was showing, for example, an HP server
So is this
This
just
one,
a static
this
picture?
one, the image in the background, the gray, that is a static image, so you can just upload JPEGs, whatever, place them on the page, and then put the PRTG elements over top.
Of course, we're on Cisco Live, so if we have the Cisco server.
Sorry, put a big X through the HP logo and slap UCS on it.
You are working with all kind of MIPS, right? With MIPS?
With
Working
SNMP MIPS?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
So with all vendors?
Pardon?
With all
With
vendors?
any vendors.
Yeah.
The SNMP sensors we have built in are mostly standard MIBs, but there's a few specific to certain vendors, and then it's really, really easy to just add any other ones. In fact, why don't I jump to that right now? I had a couple. How am I doing for time? I actually didn't pay attention to when I started, so you're gonna have to cut me off. Is that how much I have left? All right, yeah, that's perfect. For example, can I find it here?
Just while you're searching, is it like that I can also buy some services at Paessler and say, please customize these and these?
From Paessler directly, no. We're too small.
Only for business partners.
Yeah, but we have worldwide, 3,000 partners, resellers. Most of them offer services. A few of them only just resell licenses, but most of them offer services and customizing as well. So let's get back to SNMP. I picked this as an example. Kentix is a company that actually makes hardware sensors, so it's a little kind of cylindrical thing. Do you guys know Kentix? A couple nodded. It's a little silver cylinder about this tall, like a mini Alexa thing, and it measures temperature, it has a motion detector, it's got a humidity detector, that kind of thing, and it supports SNMP. So we just import their MIB into PRTG. There's an extra little tool to make the import easier, and then you set up a new sensor. So this is the temperature sensor you see here. It says that it's an SNMP custom sensor. That's one of the sensor types that's already there, and you say, I want a new SNMP custom sensor.
Could I ask you one thing? How do you import the MIPS? Do you still have this tool to import the MIP files and to convert them into the format? Okay.
You don't have to, though. If you know the OID that you want, you can do one of these custom sensors, and in the settings, you just put in the OID. If you don't know the OIDs, or you maybe want 10 of them instead of just one, then we have this tool that basically imports it, lets you browse through and say, okay, I want that, that, and that. And then shove the OID in, press start, and you've got a sensor running, measuring temperature. And I picked this one on purpose because it's not standard IT, right? You've seen we can do switches and servers and stuff like that. But I mean, every stand is going to be talking about IoT, right? Anything that supports SNMP is super easy. Question then is, yeah, okay, but lots of this stuff doesn't support SNMP. It might have an API, but it doesn't have SNMP. That's okay, because we also have a standard sensor called a script sensor. And with that, a generic one. You write a script, you have to provide the script, and then you tell PRTG, here's the name of the script. We run the script every 60 seconds or whatever. Your script has to give back a value of some sort, and that's the value then that we use for the rest of the sensor. And
A value per call.
no, you can return JSON or XML and have a set of. Those are then the channels that show up inside the sensor. You can return a bunch of values. That's a technical term now, a bunch. And they end up as channels.
Value per each channel would be a key.
Exactly. I had one bookmarked. Let me see if I can find it again quickly. No, that's a different one. That's okay. Then let me see if I can find a script sensor. That one I like, the net ammo. It's in warning too. It's also a little sensor that measures temperature and humidity and that kind of thing, but it does, okay, sorry, it didn't like that one. Let's find a better one. This one I like, this is a good one. The plant sensor. This is Does it have the name of the company here? No, I can't remember their name. Kyobuchi or something like that. It's a physical sensor. It's a little stick with a Wi-Fi thing attached to it, and the stick you stick down into a plant, and it measures, the soil and light and everything. It does not support SNMP, but it does have its own HTTP API. So we wrote a lovely little script. So this here, you see, this is one of the script sensors, an EXE script advanced sensor. And you see in the settings here, Kubachi, that's the name of the company. This is just the name of the script we're running. The script is giving back these 5 values that then show up as the 5 channels for the script.
Do you have some sort of community where you can share the scripts?
We have 2. We have our own on our own website. We call it the knowledge base. The knowledge base can be a little bit challenging to work with because it's moderated. So you ask a question or you post a script and it may take a while before you actually see a response. The other thing is we've got a GitHub repository where people can, anybody who feels like it can submit their own script. And what we have brand new is brand new, like this week, last week, 2 weeks ago, okay. It's been a busy couple weeks, is on our website, the Script World, where people who have submitted scripts to us that we know about, we collect here, and then you can scan, like say, okay, I want one that was written by Paessler because, I don't know, I don't trust other people, Paessler scripts, that have something to do with medical equipment. I don't know if one actually exists. There we go, there is one, good. So people can submit scripts to us and we'll put them here and tag them so that you can search them better. Instead of just having to Google for, is there a script for whatever, we can get the ones, you can get ones on our website.
I have a security question. For reading some of the, or most of the values probably, you need to have some kind of login credentials to the devices. How do you store them? And is there something that prevents stealing those?
I don't have the full details here. There we go. They're stored on the PRTG server itself. They're stored encrypted, but where do we have it? It used to say somewhere exactly how we store them. It doesn't say, it only says encrypted. They are stored encrypted locally on the one machine, like on the machine where PRTG is running. The entire interface, any passwords are always, starred out so no one can watch over your shoulder. They're stored they're also inherited through the tree and can be overwritten so that if you want certain sensors to be run with different users, for example, then you can enter that. Although a lot of the sensors, it's difficult to get them running if they don't have root access or Active Directory domain password. It's possible, but it's a lot harder.
I'm asking because I did a penetration test and I stumbled across a PRTG, which was in Chinese, which was really not easily readable for me, but Google is your friend. And what I did, the first thing was Google for the default login, and it worked.
But it's a default login into PRTG.
Into PRTG.
Yeah,
and
but once you're...
go to the configuration pages and find all the usernames they used for their ESXi. From there, I could take over the ESXi configs because they were using passwords. Now I had
they weren't using passwords.
They were reusing passwords.
Okay.
So that was really hey, nice, I got them.
Oops. I mean, from PRTG, you won't get the passwords, but you would see the usernames.
I didn't really try because I didn't have time.
The first step when you set up a new server is it tries to force you to change the password, but of course, if the user doesn't change it, We can't force them. Yeah.
Cannot cover stupid.
It is the very first step when you install the software, and the first thing you do when you run it is it says the default password is this, please change it now. But if they use the same one again or they insist on skipping the step.
It was a test installation they used on production systems. So that backfired a lot for them. So I didn't, in my report, I didn't make it the fault of Paessler. I told them that the server setup is just, it's stupid. Yeah, good.
Okay, I have exactly 2 minutes left.
No, it's over.
It's over.
I think it's negative.
Oh, I'm 2 minutes over.
If it gets red, it's negative.
No, that was it. That was all I was planning to show. Actually, no, there's one more cool thing I want to show you. Because of Internet of Things stuff. We ran a contest 2 or 3 years ago at this point, saying for our customers, what's the coolest thing, most interesting thing you're monitoring with PRTG? And I wanted to just show you some of the results we got. I don't have all the details for all of them. So we've got a casino, honestly, monitoring what their jackpots have paid out. We have a turkey hatchery monitoring temperature and humidity for the chicks. A German guy basically web scraping all of the gas station websites in his area and then figuring out who's got the cheapest gas price today. A little more serious, hospitals monitoring the blood bank, so temperature, power supplies to the refrigerators, supply levels of different blood types, so they know when they need to order more. A prawn farm monitoring water temperature, salinity, and everything, so that the prawns are happy.
You really have a SCADA system.
Yep, this is real. These are all real. Okay, I didn't make up any of these. The wear a tie sensor is when the boss swipes his badge coming into work. They all know he's in the office and they put their ties on. I think it is actually. Do you know, Thomas, where it was? The ties? Where? Yeah. Okay. The CeBIT trade fair you've all heard of. The entrance machines where you have to scan your pass are being monitored with PRTG. This one I find slightly creepy, to be honest, but no one asked me. Kindergartens monitoring what children are in the building and which ones have been picked up already. Matthias.
That's anti-creepy.
Well, I mean, I guess it's good for the children. Yeah, it could be badly misused. The Android probe I didn't mention. There are smaller probes, like the remote probes, but not quite as powerful. And then there's one for Android. And Matthias Schindler is actually the husband of one of our employees and is a cyclist. And he keeps track of where he went and how long he trained and everything using the Android one. The weather station we saw, a museum. This is actually similar to the kindergarten thing, sort of. They're keeping track of how many people are in each room because the rooms only have a certain capacity. Keeping track of how many are in each room. And this one's kind of cool. This is a Dutch company that rents yachts to people. And each yacht has its own data center on the yacht. And they're using PRTG on each yacht. And then when the yacht actually has an internet connection, I mean, most of the time, if they have anything at all, it's satellite. But when they're back in harbor, then they upload all of the data from the yacht data center to the central data centers for the yacht company. So there's lots of cool things you can do besides just IT and servers. Okay. I'm going to stop because I'm 5 minutes over. I will say, if you guys have any questions later, I have business cards with me. I'll give them out. Drop me a line if you don't understand something on the slides, or if you need a screenshot of something. Just let me know. I'm there to help you out.
The traffic lights?
Oh, I didn't do the traffic light. Can I have 1 more minute for the traffic light? It's not that exciting. Okay. But let me find the traffic light. It's a traffic light. Like, what else would you want?
This is something always the managers ask. Can we have a traffic light?
So, This was to show you the API. So PRTG has an API which you can use to pull data, and this traffic light is just a USB thing with its own API, and we have a little script running. Let me see if I can get it to work. If I say OK. No, it didn't work. That all looks right. Test, there we go. Ha. And now I've got the current status of my demo environment, which is always in very bad shape. But we have real customers using this. There's also a smaller version that's about this tall from the same company that they can put on their desk. We have one, I don't know how they stand it, but they've got, it's like a police car alarm with a flashing light and an alarm. It's so loud though. It's like if it goes off, you have a heart attack. Anything you can write a script for, combine the two, and you've got a cool notification.
This is cool.
Yep. We always bring this to trade fairs because we put it at the stand, and I swear everybody stops just to see the traffic light. Okay, I'll wrap it up now. If you have any questions, just let me know. Okay, thanks guys.
Thank you.